So a devastating defeat for Bournemouth against Southampton. 2-0 is how it finished, but it looked as though it was going to be 1-1. Sam Surridge, local boy, 21, came through the club's youth system, thought he'd equalised on 96 minutes, but VAR intervened. Callum Wilson was offside, and that means heading into the final week of the season, Bournemouth are 3 points from safety, but it's out of their own hands. If Watford, as a long shot as may seem, pick anything up against Manchester City or Arsenal, they're down Bournemouth no matter what they do next week against Everton. Damien Delaney was alongside me watching this. Did they deserve something from the game, Damien?
Probably not. I mean, if you're honest with it, Southampton should have been 2 or 3-0 up. But I think just at the end of commentary, I was a bit emotional for Bournemouth, and especially that young kid, because if he'd have got them a point and then they go and get a result against Everton next week and they stayed up, I mean, the guy would never have to buy a drink in Bournemouth ever again, being a local lad. So kind of that fairy tale for him has been kind of taken away, and rightly so, I suppose. To the letter of the law, once you see it back afterwards, it probably is correct decision. But look, they give themselves a fighting chance going into next week, but on the evidence of today, I wouldn't hold out much hope for them beating Everton next week.
It's now 1 win in 12 for Bournemouth. That victory against Leicester, God knows where that came from last week. What's gone wrong for them this season?
They spent a lot of money, and Eddie Howe seems to. Well, look, I suppose first and foremost you have to mention their injuries that they've had. But that aside, they spent a lot of money, and you look at the young kids, Kelly and Surridge coming on today. Brooks hasn't been great since recently. Like, just seems to have gone a little bit flat. Maybe the manager's lost a little bit of enthusiasm for the job because the manager is down a little bit. The players that have come in haven't really had the desired effect. Lerma's been okay, Billings has been okay. They've not brought in players that have kind of elevated them and make them come on in leaps and bounds, or even come on at all. They just seem to have stagnated, and unfortunately when you get into a little spin like that the other side of Christmas and relegation is on the horizon and people start saying things like, oh, you're too good to go down, or oh, we won't go down. All of a sudden now you're like six defeats in a row and you're on the cusp of going in, and then when you drop in psychologically it can be difficult to get out of that.
There was a crazy couple of minutes there where Danny Ings scored the goal, and then news came through pretty much at the same time that Watford had sacked Nigel Pearson. So Watford are fourth from bottom. They were obviously beaten in that huge game on Friday night, well beaten by West Ham, but have put in some, very inconsistent, obviously, considering they're in this position. But he's only in the job since December. Can you understand what Watford have done?
Okay, one or two things have happened here. Either he's gone real heavy on the players on Friday night after the game, or he's gone real heavy on them yesterday morning in training, and maybe he has lost the run of himself and went over the top, considering they're still in with a fighting chance. Maybe there was some sort of physical altercation. Maybe the changing room just went crazy. I don't know what's happened. That's one way of looking at it, and that's a distinct possibility. The other possibility is the owners have basically said to themselves, he's going to be gone in 2 games anyway. At the minute, with the curve that we're on, which is hurtling towards relegation, we might as well give ourselves a fighting chance. And maybe we get a manager in. I mean, off the top of my head, I'm thinking a Sam Allardyce type character. I know that it sounds absolute lunacy, and I know everyone out there is saying it's crazy. But if you're a businessman and you're an owner of a football club, you want to give yourself a fighting chance. Maybe Pearson wasn't the man to turn it around. All they need is a point, or even not even a point. They just don't need 2 heavy defeats. If they could lose both games 1-0, they stay in the Premier League.
Well, they do have Villa to worry about as well.
That's true.
Unlikely as that may seem.
Okay, fair enough.
So you've been in a Sam Allardyce dressing room.
Yeah.
What does Sam Allardyce do in the space of 48 hours before you play Manchester City and then Arsenal?
Well, I tell you, Big Sam would walk in and he's a huge... Look, I mean, this is obviously... I know people are saying you're mad, it's a crazy decision, he didn't deserve that. But I can understand why they've did it. If it wasn't the first reason and something happened on Saturday morning and they're coming at it from this angle, I see why they've done it. But Big Sam would walk through that door, big hulk of a man, he'd walk in and he'd own the room straight away, and everybody would be quiet. Everybody, foreign players, English players, everybody would just sit down, and Sam would say, you need one result, and he would just, his presence would just lift the whole place really. I've been in that situation. Our first game when Sam Allardyce came in, and he came in and he just said, look, this is the team, it is what it is, if you don't like it, and he just has that presence about him, and he was fantastic for us for the back end of the season.
I get the sense you really like Sam Allardyce.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, really. I mean, look, if I was in a foxhole right now, one man I'd want to see walk through the door would be someone like Sam Allardyce, because I know that he has that in his locker, and I'm pretty sure for 2 games he could be financially entitled to come out of.
I dare say he could.
To come out for 1 game and just walk in a room.
What was it? Just his no-nonsense style?
He has a presence, and he would just, everybody would do what he'd say. You know, he'd come in, he'd say, "This is the way I think I want things done," and I'm pretty sure that with his track record and the way that he is, he'd be a great little fit for him. I'm just saying, if this is the angle the owners are going at, I'd be on the phone to him right now saying, "Sam, can you come in for a week, please, and do a week's training?" And he'd come in and he'd set the team up to at least not get hammered, and that gives him a chance.
I'll take your word for it. It'd be interesting.
It would be, and I know it's off the wall, but I understand it.
Yeah. Mention for Southampton then, they're on to 31 points away from home this season, 6 games undefeated, another goal for Danny Ings. A lot of talk of manager of the year and how it's obviously going to be Jurgen Klopp, but maybe the likes of Sean Dyche and Chris Wilder should be in contention. Ralph Hasenhüttl, from that 9-0 defeat against Leicester, what they have done since then has been pretty remarkable.
Yeah, brilliant. Absolutely. We spoke last week about how the backing of the board would have put any, not just the backing, giving a new contract. You know, it's one thing to come out and saying it, but that would have put an awful lot of fears to rest. An awful lot of people who would have been starting rumour mills would have been shut down straight away, and he would have had not just to complete another trust of the board, but they've delivered that with a contract. So we spoke about it last week. But it's easy to see where they win games away from home. I know Vestergaard hasn't been playing recently, but Bednarak and Stevens have been fantastic. They play with that low block defensively. They got legs in midfield. Ward-Prowse gets about the pitch, and they break in numbers at lightning speed. So you can see why they pick up points away from home. Maybe at home where there isn't that counter-attacking space, they do struggle a little bit. But on top of that, they got 2 centre-backs that can stand in the middle of goal and very rarely get dragged out. I know I was having a go at Vestergaard early in the game that he's a weakness, but he kind of once he got booked, he went back to the middle of goal and he just said, "I don't care what happens out there, it's none of my business. I can't go out there because I'm going to be in trouble." So he just went back in the middle of goal and he headed and he cleared everything. So you can see they're set up brilliantly for it, and they have real legs, good age profile there, and I think Shane Long is a huge part of what they do.
The other big talking point of the weekend so far was the first of the FA Cup semi-finals. Arsenal, having watched them at the start of football coming back, being battered by Manchester City, and David Luiz obviously being humiliated that night, somehow our entirely transformed side against Manchester City last night, a 2-0 win. David Luiz at the centre of everything good they did. Aubameyang lethal in front of goal again. But it raises big questions about Manchester City. That's 11 defeats now in all competitions this season, and practically every big game of consequence they've played this season, they've lost. Do you look at this City team and think there's a weakness mentally?
Look, first of all, I think Arsenal have done brilliant and they deserve an awful lot of credit. I didn't see that result coming, but they obviously played very, very well, aided by David Luiz's fantastic performance, and Aubameyang is always capable of scoring goals. So well done to them. But Man City, has he thrown his lot in with the Champions League? Has he just said, "I don't care about anything else right now, I don't want any other focus to be on anything, it's Champions League and the Real Madrid second tie, and I'm building," be it fitness wise, he might have given his players time off.
It's a cup semi-final. Surely
you're right, but you know what? He needs and he wants a Champions League. I'm not saying he's done that, but it's quite possible that he has maybe given his players time to rest, and he's building a training block to be fit in August. It's being run off, right? August 8th or 9th it starts. So he's putting a training block in place for to be a peak performance, and that it's a possibility. I'm not saying he has done that,
but that's now. But you'd think back to even pre-lockdown. Well beaten at Anfield by Liverpool, beaten home and away by Manchester United, beaten by United in the League Cup. I know City went through eventually to the final, beaten twice by Wolves since the restart. They've been beaten by Chelsea, they lost to Spurs before the break. They've been beaten by Arsenal now. In these tough, we know how good they are when it comes to racking up scores, but when it really matters, are they at the level they were at over the last couple of years?
Well, I said that about Pep's teams fairly regularly. Jurgen Klopp inspired that Barcelona comeback. Could you ever, and I think I was on here with Joe, and we said, could you ever envisage Pep doing something like that? You couldn't. He's very clinical, he's very methodical, and he's very, very good, and he's inspirational with his tactics, but Klopp is emotionally inspirational. Look, it's a fair question, but you don't know what's going on behind the scenes there at Manchester City. I think Pep always viewed this year as a transition year after winning 2 Premier Leagues on the spin. He probably came into it thinking that we're a little behind with Company going, Silva finishing, Aguero potentially having a little drop off. Fernandinho ended up playing centre back, and Laporte getting injured, which was a huge part, because maybe he was thinking, if I would have kept Laporte fit for the season, there's my main guy, and I can kind of drop in Otamendi, drop in Stones, and even Fernandinho if I have to. But Laporte going down left him really short, and the confidence is low at the minute. So maybe he thinks he hasn't got the squad to compete, and maybe he wants a break coming in. I know people say, well, that's stupid, they've had a break over COVID, but maybe he thinks, you know what, I just want to give my players a break from the end of the Premier League season and have them fit and raring to go, and he has gone all in the Champions League. I'm not saying that's what happened, but it's a possibility.
All right, great stuff as always, Damien.